Marcus Whelan was 17 the day his foster mother changed the locks while he was at school. He came back to find a garbage bag on the porch holding 2 shirts, a pair of sweatpants, a library card, and $11 in loose change. Through the window, he could see her new boyfriend watching television in the room that had been his for 3 years, feet up on the coffee table Marcus had helped refinish that summer. She opened the door just wide enough for her voice to slip through. The state money dried up next month anyway. You understand? He understood. November in upstate New York doesn't negotiate. The wind came off the lake carrying the smell of dead leaves and diesel from the marina. Marcus walked with his garbage bag slung over one shoulder, fingers already stiff, the taste of cold pennies in the back of his throat. If I stop moving, I'm done, he thought. So he didn't stop. He slept that first night in the back stairwell of the public library on Cayuga Street. The janitor found him at 5 in the morning, didn't say a word, just left a wool blanket folded by the door. Marcus never learned his name. For 2 weeks he survived on day labor, washing dishes at a Greek restaurant for cash, sweeping the parking lot behind a tire shop. He kept his library card like other people keep a photograph. Every afternoon before they closed, he sat at the same table near the heating vent, reading whatever was on the return cart. Mostly repair manuals, wiring diagrams, a water-stained copy of a Steinbeck novel someone had dog-eared on nearly every page. Then came the afternoon that broke the pattern. Marcus was walking past the Elks Lodge on his way to the library when he heard it. A piano, not played well, but played with something. Whoever was inside kept circling back to the same passage, stumbling on the same 3 notes, trying again. He stopped on the sidewalk and listened until his ears went numb. The door was propped open with a brick. Inside, a woman in a custodial uniform was mopping the stage while a battered upright piano sat against the wall, lit up, keys yellowed like old teeth. Nobody was playing it now. A handwritten sign taped to the side read, "Free to anyone who can move it." Marcus touched one key. The sound that came out was flat, dull, slightly buzzing. Something loose inside the cabinet. You want that thing? The custodian didn't look up from her mop. Been sitting here since the flood last spring. Waterlogged. Tuna came in, said it would cost more to fix than it's worth. Marcus pressed another key. This one was dead entirely. No sound at all. How much? He asked. She finally looked at him. Honey, I just said free, but you'd need a truck and a place to put it. He had neither. He had $11 minus the 4 he'd spent on a sleeve of crackers. He came back the next morning with a hand truck he'd borrowed from the tire shop and a plan that made no sense to anyone but him. It took him 6 hours to move the piano 3 blocks to an abandoned bus shelter near the rail yard. The shelter had a concrete floor, a partial roof, and walls covered in old graffiti. It smelled like wet newspaper and pipe tobacco from the men who sometimes slept there. That's where Marcus Whelan started to play. He didn't know how. Not really. He'd had 4 months of lessons when he was 9, in a group home where a volunteer came on Wednesdays. He remembered the position of middle C. He remembered that his hands were supposed to curve like he was holding small oranges. That was it. But the library had books on that too. The piano was a disaster. 31 of the 88 keys didn't work. The sustain pedal was frozen. Something inside the cabinet rattled when he played anything above the 4th octave, a loose hammer, maybe a broken string coiled against the soundboard. The sound was ugly. Hollow, like a voice trying to sing through a closed window. Marcus didn't care. He played every evening until his fingers cramped, which didn't take long because his hands were already wrecked from day labor. His right hand had a deep cut across the palm from a sheet metal edge at the tire shop. His left pinky was swollen from where he'd caught it in a mop wringer. He wrapped both hands in electrical tape and played anyway. The bus shelter was not private. People passed by. Most ignored him. Some didn't, Garrison Hale noticed on the 3rd day. He pulled his silver Audi to the curb and sat watching through the window for a full minute before stepping out. Garrison owned the 3 nicest rental properties in town and sat on the zoning board. He wore a quilted vest over a pressed shirt and had the particular confidence of a man who had never once doubted that his opinions were facts. "Son, that piano sounds like a cat in a washing machine." Marcus kept playing. Garrison leaned against the bus shelter frame. "I'm serious. What are you doing out here? This isn't a concert hall. You're going to attract vagrants." Marcus looked up. "I think I already am one." Garrison's mouth twitched. Not amusement. Annoyance. He pointed at the piano. "That thing is garbage. You're embarrassing yourself." He pulled out his phone, probably to call someone about code violations. Marcus watched him drive away. That night, the temperature dropped below 20. Marcus couldn't feel 3 of his fingers on his left hand. He sat on the concrete floor of the shelter, back against the piano, and thought about Garrison Hale's face. The way he'd said son like it was a synonym for nothing. He's right. This is garbage. I'm garbage. He kicked the piano's leg. The whole instrument shattered. A string snapped inside with a bright, ugly ping. Marcus put his head in his hands and sat there a long time. Then he got up and opened the piano cabinet. He didn't know what he was looking at, not entirely. But he knew what broken looked like, and he knew what the book at the library said the inside of a piano should look like, and he could see the difference. 3 hammers were swollen with water damage. The pin block had hairline cracks. Felt pads had rotted off entirely. He started with what he could reach, stripped the dead felt with a pocket knife, cut replacement pads from a wool blanket, the same one the janitor had left him. They didn't fit perfectly, they didn't need to. He just needed them to dampen the buzz. Days passed. He worked at the tire shop in the mornings, played in the afternoons, repaired the piano at night by flashlight. His hands looked terrible. Swollen knuckles, split skin, electrical tape black with grime. The Greek restaurant owner saw them and started leaving a small jar of petroleum jelly by the back door without comment. 3 weeks in, Marcus drew get 61 keys to produce something close to their intended note. Not perfect, not tuned, but alive. He played a simplified version of something he'd found in a book at the library, a Chopin Nocturne, stripped down to its skeleton because half the notes were missing from his keyboard. It sounded strange, incomplete, like a conversation with long pauses where meaning lived in what wasn't said. People started to stop. Not many. A woman walking her dog, 2 kids on bikes, an old man who sat on the bench across the street and listened for 20 minutes without moving. None of them clapped, none of them said anything. They just stayed longer than made sense. Then Garrison Hale came back. It was a Tuesday. Marcus was playing in the late afternoon, the light going amber through the shelter's cracked plastic walls. He heard the Audi before he saw it. Garrison got out but didn't approach right away. He stood by his car, arms folded, watching. Something in his posture was different. The vest was the same. The pressed shirt was the same. But his shoulders were lower and he kept shifting his weight, and when he finally walked over, he didn't lead with his voice. He stood and listened to the end of the piece. Marcus stopped, looked at him. Garrison cleared his throat. "My daughter plays," he said. "Played. She's at a facility upstate now." He paused. "She won't talk to me. She stopped talking to everyone about 8 months ago. But before that, the last thing she played was this piece. This exact one." Marcus said nothing. Garrison's jaw tightened. He looked away toward the rail yard, the gray sky, anywhere else. "I've been a particular kind of man for a long time," he said quietly. "That's not an apology. I just need you to know I heard it." He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a check. It was made out to cash. $500. "For the piano," he said. "Fix it right." Marcus looked at the check, then at Garrison. He could have said a lot of things. He said, "I don't need your money." Garrison flinched. "But if your daughter ever wants to play again," Marcus said, "she can come here. Anytime. I'm here every day." Garrison stood perfectly still for 3 seconds. Then he folded the check, put it back in his pocket, nodded once, and left. Marcus noticed his hand was shaking as he reached for the car door. That evening, Marcus played until the streetlights came on. A small crowd gathered, 7 people, then 12. The nocturne filled the bus shelter and spilled out into the cold street, imperfect and full of gaps, and nobody moved. A woman in the back sat down on the curb and put her hand over her mouth. Marcus didn't see who she was. He was watching his own broken hands move across the keys, amazed that they still could. By December, something had shifted that Marcus couldn't have planned. A local news blog ran a short piece with a photo. Kid plays broken piano at bus shelter. It got shared a few hundred times, then a few thousand. A video someone took on their phone went further. Not viral, not famous, just enough. Enough for a piano technician in Syracuse to drive down on a Saturday and spend 9 hours rebuilding the action for free. Enough for the tire shop owner to offer Marcus a permanent position with a key to the building. Enough for the library to let him use the back room after hours to study for his equivalency exam. None of it was dramatic. All of it was earned. Marcus kept playing every evening. He got better, but the piano would never sound like a concert instrument. It had too much history in it, too many repairs made from the wrong materials, too many scars on the soundboard that changed the resonance into something uneven and strange and entirely its own. One night in January, while replacing a broken string, Marcus found something he'd missed before. Behind the iron plate, wedged into a gap between the soundboard and the back frame, was a small wooden box. It had been glued to the inside of the cabinet, invisible unless you removed the plate entirely. The glue had yellowed and cracked with age. Marcus pried it free. Inside was a tightly rolled sheet of staff paper covered in handwritten music notation. Not printed, composed by hand. The notes were careful, precise, written by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. At the top, in faded pencil, a name. Etta Vaughn. Under the rolled paper was a photograph. A young black woman sitting at an upright piano in what looked like a church hall. She was maybe 20. She was not smiling, but her hands were on the keys with a certainty that radiated through 50 years of fading. On the back of the photograph, one line in the same handwriting. For whoever finds this and knows what it cost. Marcus sat on the concrete floor of the bus shelter, holding a dead woman's composition in the cold light of his flashlight, and read through the music slowly. He could follow it now. Months of study had given him enough. The piece was in a minor key complex with a recurring left-hand figure that climbed and fell like breathing. It was written for a full piano. All 88 keys. He couldn't play it. Not yet, not on this instrument. Maybe not ever, with hands like his. But he started learning it anyway, one measure at a time, filling in the gaps with silence where his piano had none to give. Spring came. The snow pulled back from the streets like a held breath releasing. Marcus passed his equivalency exam. He kept his job at the tire shop. He kept playing every evening. Garrison Hale's daughter came once, in April. She was 19, thin, quiet. She sat on the bench across the street for 40 minutes listening. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. When she left, she touched the side of the piano once, briefly, the way you touch a wall to make sure it's real. Marcus never played the full composition. He never had all 88 keys working at the same time. That he played what he could of Etta Vaughn's piece every evening as the light changed. And the gaps became part of the music, and the people who stopped to listen understood without being told that some things don't need to be finished to be whole. On a warm night in May, a boy showed up at the bus shelter, maybe 15, dirty backpack, hands shoved in his pockets. He watched Marcus play for 10 minutes, then asked, "Can you teach me?" Marcus slid over on the bench. "Sit down," he said. "We start with middle C." The boy sat. His hands were shaking. Marcus didn't mention it. He just played the note and waited and let the boy find it on his own.